The medical outpost on Vega 9 was a quiet, desolate place perched on the edge of the galactic frontier. It was a far cry from the bustling cities of Earth where Dr. Ethan Voss had once practiced. Here, the sterile white walls of the outpost hummed softly with the ambient sound of distant machinery. Days blended into nights, and Ethan's only companions were the endless stream of injured miners, rogue traders, and the occasional mercenary seeking treatment after a scuffle. Life had settled into a routine, until the sound of a distant roar shattered the monotony. Ethan looked up from his datapad as a battered hovercraft skidded to a halt just outside the outpost's reinforced gates. Its engine sputtered with a final wheeze before cutting out. The silence that followed was heavy. Two cloaked figures emerged from the hovercraft. One was tall and broad, clearly a guard or soldier by the way they moved with purpose. The other was smaller, struggling under the weight of something, or someone, wrapped in a thick, iridescent cloth. "Medic, get out here," the taller figure barked, their voice sharp with authority. "She's dying." Ethan's heart leaped into his throat. His instincts kicked in, and he grabbed his medical kit from the counter. He dashed to the entrance, eyes scanning the scene with the precision of a seasoned professional. His gaze locked onto the figure in the smaller one's arms, a limp body barely visible beneath the shroud of shimmering fabric. "Bring her inside, now," Ethan commanded, stepping aside to give them room. The two figures hurried past him, boots clanging against the metal floors of the outpost. As soon as they reached the medbay, Ethan motioned for them to place her on the operating table. "Remove the covering," he ordered. The taller one hesitated, glancing at the other. They exchanged a look, then slowly peeled back the fabric. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. The figure on the table wasn't just any alien. It was a unyielding, a species known for their radiant, scale-like skin that shimmered with bioluminescent hues. This particular unyielding's glow was dim, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her scales flickered between pale blue and dull green, a sign of severe physical distress. Her face was sharp and elegant, her silver eyes shut tight with pain. Her features were unmistakable, not just for her species, but for her status. Ethan knew instantly who she was. "Is this?" he began, his voice trailing off as he looked at the tall figure. "Yes," the taller figure said grimly, pulling back their hood to reveal a sharp, weathered face marked with 3 tribal-like scars down one cheek. Their silver eyes gleamed like molten metal. "This is Lyra, daughter of King Varen. If she dies, so do you, human." Ethan froze. The weight of those words settled on his chest like a stone. King Varen was one of the most feared rulers in the sector, and his rebellious daughter had a reputation for defiance. Her name echoed in whispers across star systems. She was no ordinary princess. She was a symbol of rebellion. "Well," Ethan said, rolling up his sleeves, his eyes narrowing with resolve, "then we better make sure she lives." Lyra's body was in far worse shape than Ethan had expected. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths, and the scans revealed multiple deep lacerations along her arms and torso. Worse, a strange luminous infection had spread beneath her scales, pulsing with an eerie golden glow. "This infection," Ethan muttered, leaning closer to the display. "It's not natural." "She's been in the shattered glades," the tall guard muttered, their voice laced with contempt. The shattered glades. Ethan's eyes widened. Everyone in the frontier knew of it, a cursed region where strange energy fields twisted living matter. Rumors of people returning with glowing veins and erratic behavior were common in frontier legends. "She disobeyed the king's orders," the smaller figure added, pulling their cloak tighter. "Ventured into the glades alone, as usual. Foolish girl." Ethan's gaze shifted to Lyra. Her face was still twisted in pain, her hands twitching with involuntary spasms. She didn't seem like a fool to him. "Enough talking," Ethan snapped. "I don't care about her politics. If I don't act now, she won't last an hour." The infection was spreading too fast. Ethan's hands moved with practiced precision, scanning her vitals and running tests. The foreign substance moving through her veins wasn't a virus, nor was it a parasite. It behaved more like an energy-based pathogen. It merged with her cells, feeding on her bioelectricity. "I need to purge it," he muttered. "But if I flush it too fast, it might trigger a bioshock." "Do it," the guard grunted. "She's strong." "Strength has nothing to do with it," Ethan shot back. "This isn't about toughness. It's about biology." He glanced at Lyra's face. Her breathing had become erratic, shallow gasps that echoed like whispers. Her silver eyes flickered open, barely able to focus on him. Her lips moved, but no sound escaped. "Don't move, princess," Ethan said, his voice soft but firm. "I'm going to save you. Just stay with me." Her eyes stayed on him for a moment longer. Then her lips formed one weak word. "Why?" Ethan felt his chest tighten. He paused, meeting her gaze head-on. It would have been easy to tell her it was his job, easy to say he had no choice, but something about her gaze demanded a deeper answer. "Because you're not just a princess," he said softly. "You're my patient, and I don't abandon my patients." Her eyes slowly closed, but not before he saw something flicker in them. Respect, maybe. Ethan gritted his teeth, turning to his equipment. His mind ran through every medical protocol, every emergency technique, and then his own human ingenuity kicked in. "If it feeds on bioelectricity," he muttered, his eyes darting to the power conduits lining the walls, "then maybe I can starve it." He quickly rigged an improvised power siphon, placing nodes along her arms and torso. The guard's eyes narrowed as Ethan connected the system to the medbay's power grid. "What are you doing?" the guard asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. "Draining her bioelectric charge," Ethan replied, eyes locked on the readouts. "It's feeding on her glow. If I drain her glow, the infection will starve." "Will it hurt her?" the guard asked. "Probably," Ethan admitted. "But if I don't do it, she'll be dead in an hour." The guard watched him for a moment, then nodded. "Do it." With a deep breath, Ethan activated the system. Sparks danced along the conduits as the medbay's lights flickered. The glow of Lyra's body dimmed slowly, her scales shifting from bright cyan to pale blue. She tensed, her body arching as if hit by an electric jolt. Her face twisted with pain, but she did not scream. The infection flickered too. The golden glow faded, pulsing weaker and weaker. "Come on," Ethan whispered, his eyes locked on the infection. "Give up. Give up, you parasite." Beads of sweat formed on his brow as he adjusted the power flow. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, at last, the glow disappeared. Ethan fell back into his chair, gasping for breath. Lyra's body relaxed, her breathing steady for the first time since she arrived. "You did it," the guard said, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Not yet," Ethan panted, wiping his forehead. "It might come back. But for now, she's stable." He glanced at Lyra, her face calm, her eyes closed in exhausted sleep. "Rest, princess," he murmured. "You earned it." Hours passed. The steady hum of the medical equipment was the only sound in the room. Dr. Ethan Voss sat slouched in his chair, eyes flickering between the vitals on his monitor and the sleeping figure on the medbay table. Lyra's breathing was stable now, her chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. Her radiant scales had dimmed to a soft silver-blue glow, but the infection had been purged, at least for now. The tall guard stood by the wall, arms folded like a living statue. His sharp eyes never left Ethan. The smaller cloaked figure had vanished, likely slipping outside to report to their superiors. Ethan glanced at the guard, feeling the weight of that watchful gaze. "She'll be fine," Ethan said, breaking the tense silence. "Her body needs rest, but she's out of danger." "You sound confident," the guard replied, his voice gruff and skeptical. "That's because I am." Ethan leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "Look, I'm not interested in royal politics. I did my job. She's alive. That's what matters." The guard tilted his head, his silver eyes narrowing. "Do you have any idea who she is, human?" "I know she's important," Ethan replied, shooting him a tired look. "That much was obvious when you started threatening my life." "She is more than important," the guard said, stepping forward. His voice dropped to a low, dangerous rumble. "She's not just the king's daughter. She's his heir, the firstborn. The chosen one to succeed the Iron Crown." Ethan frowned, his eyes flicking to Lyra's sleeping face. Her expression was peaceful, her features sharp but serene. She didn't look like a chosen one right now. She looked like an exhausted girl who had fought too many battles. "I don't care if she's the king's heir or the galaxy's biggest outlaw," Ethan muttered. "She's my patient, and I don't let my patients die." For a moment, the guard stared at him in silence. Then, to Ethan's surprise, the guard let out a quiet snort of amusement. "Perhaps you're not as weak as I thought," he admitted, his eyes gleaming with something that might have been respect. "I'll take that as a compliment," Ethan replied, leaning back in his chair. Time passed slowly. Ethan busied himself by organizing his medical supplies, checking the power systems, and reviewing the logs on Lyra's condition. Every now and then, he'd glance at her, half expecting to see her eyes open and filled with rebellion. But she remained asleep. Just as he was beginning to relax, the comms panel on the wall crackled to life. "Voss," a familiar voice barked. It was Captain Rail, the station commander. "Report. We're picking up movement outside the perimeter." Ethan shot up, his eyes narrowing. "Movement? What kind of movement?" "Unclear," Rail replied. "Could be scavengers, could be something worse. Our drones spotted a group approaching from the east." Ethan's eyes flicked toward the window. Vega 9's barren landscape stretched as far as the eye could see, a sea of gray rock and faintly glowing mineral deposits. It was always quiet, too quiet. Any kind of movement out there usually meant trouble. "I've got a patient here," Ethan said, keeping his voice low. "If this is some merc gang looking for loot, I'm not abandoning her." "Don't be stupid, Voss," Rail shot back. "If it's scavengers, they'll kill you and take your supplies. You've got 5 minutes to lock down the medbay. Don't be a hero." The comms cut off, leaving only static. "Perfect," Ethan muttered, turning to the tall guard. "Did you hear that?" The guard nodded. His face was grim. "They're coming for her," the guard said quietly. "They must have tracked our craft." Ethan's heart sank. "Tracked you? How?" "Lyra's presence is a beacon," the guard admitted, glancing at her. "Her aura, her glow, leaves traces on quantum threads. Skilled hunters can follow it." "Wonderful," Ethan muttered, his mind racing. His eyes darted to the emergency lock controls near the medbay doors. He could seal the room, but the power drain would be enormous. Worse, if they breached the outer walls, the vacuum would do the rest. He looked at Lyra, still unconscious on the table. Her faint glow was visible even now, shimmering like starlight. "How many of them do you think there are?" Ethan asked. "Does it matter?" The guard replied, his tone dark. "We fight until they fall." It didn't take long for the attackers to make themselves known. The first sign was a soft thump on the roof. Then another, and another. It sounded like hail. Ethan's eyes darted upward, heart racing. "They're on the roof." The guard's eyes snapped up. His hand went to his side, pulling a weapon from beneath his cloak, a curved energy blade that hummed with a low electric buzz. "Stay close," the guard ordered. "Not an option," Ethan replied, checking the monitors. "If I don't keep Lyra stable, she could relapse." The guard gave him a sharp look but didn't argue. The thumping grew louder, faster. Then, with a deafening clang, something struck the vent system above. Sparks rained down. Breaching charges, Ethan realized, eyes wide. He glanced at the guard. "They're trying to cut through the air vents." The guard cursed in his native tongue, gripping his weapon tighter. They're fools if they think they can ambush me. With a roar, the vent above burst open, and two figures dropped down. They were clad in gray armor, faces hidden behind visored helmets. No insignias, no markings. Mercenaries. The first one barely had time to land before the guard was on him. The humming blades sliced through his armor like paper, cutting from shoulder to hip. Sparks flew as his suit's power pack detonated, sending a shower of energy across the floor. The second merc raised his rifle, but Ethan was already moving. He grabbed a surgical laser from the counter and fired it straight at the merc's visor. The precision beam struck dead center, sending the attacker stumbling backward with a shout of pain. The guard was on him in an instant, driving his blade through the merc's chest with a twist. The lifeless body crumpled to the floor. Two down. The guard growled, his breathing steady. More coming, Ethan muttered, glancing at the ceiling. They know she's here. Alarms blare as three more blips appeared on the radar. Ethan knew they were coming for Lyra. Her glow was a target. He looked at her, still unconscious but alive. Her glow had dimmed further, and for a moment, an idea sparked in his mind. He grabbed his medical tablet and tapped into the bioenergy controls he had used to purge the infection. If he could suppress her bioelectric signature, her glow would vanish. It was risky. Her body was already weakened from the infection, and reducing her bioelectricity further could send her into shock. But it's the only way to hide her. Guard, Ethan called. I can mask her presence, but I need time. Do it, the guard barked. He stepped forward, blade ready. His eyes burned with determination. I'll hold them off. Ethan's fingers flew across the tablet's interface. He adjusted the power flow to her bioelectric nodes, gradually reducing the output. Her glow flickered like a dying flame, and for a moment she winced. Her eyes opened, faint but alert. Stay with me, princess, Ethan whispered, eyes locked on her vitals. You're safe. I won't let them take you. Her gaze focused on him. Her lips moved again, barely a whisper. Why? Ethan smiled softly, his fingers never stopping. Because that's what humans do. We save people, even stubborn princesses. Her eyes slowly closed again, but this time, her lips curled into the faintest smile. The light of her glow faded into darkness. The sounds of battle echoed from the hallway as the guard roared. The clash of metal and shouts of rage filled the air. Ethan didn't stop working. His eyes stayed on Lyra, watching for the first sign of danger. Because he knew one thing for certain. They were coming for her. And as long as he was breathing, they would never get her. The medbay trembled as another explosion echoed through the station. Dust shook loose from the ceiling, and warning lights flickered red. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, but his hand stayed steady on the medical tablet. Lyra's glow had vanished completely. Her scales now a soft, dull blue. Her vitals dipped briefly before stabilizing. It had worked. Her energy signature was cloaked. But cloaking her wouldn't matter if the mercenaries killed them both. He glanced at the guard, his body a whirlwind of precise violence. The guard's energy blade hummed with lethal grace, arcs of light flashing with every swing. Two more mercenaries fell at his feet, their armor sparking from the deep, clean cuts. How long can he keep this up? Ethan wondered, beads of sweat rolling down his temple. He checked the monitors. 3 more heat signatures were closing in fast. These ones were heavier, their movements steadier. Veterans. They weren't rushing in like the others. 3 more inbound, Ethan called, his voice tight with urgency. The guard wiped blood from his face, his eyes like burning coals. I know, he growled. I hear them. He turned to Ethan, his gaze sharp. If I fall, you run. Ethan barked a short, bitter laugh. Not happening. The guard's eyes flickered with something akin to respect. Foolish, he muttered, readying his stance. But honorable. The next attack wasn't loud or reckless. It was slow, precise. Smoke seeped in from the vents, curling along the ceiling in thick gray tendrils. Gas, Ethan realized too late. His throat burned, and his vision blurred. He yanked his respirator mask from the emergency cabinet and shoved it onto his face. The world stabilized as filtered air filled his lungs. But the guard had no mask. His cough was harsh, his breath ragged. Ethan spun, his eyes scanning the shelves. He yanked another respirator free and tossed it. The guard caught it, clamped it over his face, and took a deep, steadying breath. A low metallic clang echoed through the vents. "They're here." The guard crouched low, his eyes scanning the ceiling. He could feel it too. The vibrations. Movement. Shadows danced in the flickering red emergency lights. "Above us," Ethan muttered, his eyes locked on the vent. The first merc dropped down like a predator, his armor bulkier than the others. He carried a heavy riot shield and a concussion rifle, his visor glowing a sharp crimson red. Ethan's stomach sank. Elite trooper. The guard moved first. He lunged forward, faster than Ethan could track, his energy blade slicing toward the trooper's exposed side. But the merc had anticipated it. He raised his shield with a thunderous clang, sparks flying as the blade glanced off the reinforced metal. The trooper shoved the shield forward, slamming it into the guard's chest. He staggered back, coughing as he crashed into the wall. The second merc dropped in behind him, flanking from the left. This one carried dual plasma daggers, his movements fluid like a dancer. The guard ducked under the first slash, spinning to parry the second with his blade. The two combatants moved in a blur, sparks and flashes of light cutting through the dim red glow. Ethan's hands trembled. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he couldn't. Lyra was still unconscious on the table, vulnerable and exposed. He couldn't leave her. His eyes darted to his surgical tools. Not a weapon, but it'll have to do. He grabbed the high-frequency scalpel. It wasn't much, just a narrow blade that vibrated at extreme speeds to make precision incisions. But right now, it was his only chance. The third merc crashed through the side door, his heavy boots stomping toward the medical table. Ethan's breath hitched. He's going for Lyra. "No," Ethan yelled, sprinting forward. The merc spotted him too late. Ethan didn't think. He drove the scalpel into the gap between the merc's chest plate and his neck armor. The blade pierced flesh, and the vibration tech did the rest. Blood sprayed in a thin arc. The merc let out a choked gasp, grabbing at his neck as he staggered back. He twisted toward Ethan, fury burning in his eyes. His hand reached for his sidearm. Not fast enough. Ethan ripped the scalpel free and jabbed it again, straight into the merc's wrist. Sparks flew as his cybernetic joints spasmed, locking up. With a shout of rage, Ethan shoved him backward, sending him crashing into the wall. The merc's body slumped to the ground, motionless. Breathing hard, Ethan stumbled back, his heart pounding like a war drum. His arms shook from the adrenaline. I just killed a man. But there was no time to think about it. Across the room, the guard had the elite trooper pinned against the wall, his blade inches from the trooper's neck. The dual-dagger merc lay at his feet, his body limp and unmoving. Blood trickled from a gash on the guard's arm, but he didn't flinch. His blade pressed harder against the trooper's visor, the energy crackling with deadly promise. "Yield," the guard snarled. The trooper's fingers twitched on his rifle, but he knew he'd never be fast enough. His helmet shifted slightly as he gave a nod of defeat. The guard pulled back just enough for the trooper to breathe. "Take him," Ethan said, breathing heavily. "Strip his comms and tracker. Make sure they can't call for backup." The guard eyed him with surprise. "You give commands like a warrior, human." "I'm a doctor," Ethan shot back, his voice cold. "We do what's necessary." The guard gave him a slow, approving nod. "You might survive this after all." An eerie silence fell over the medbay. The battle was over, but the air was still heavy with the tang of blood and the acrid sting of burnt circuits. Ethan's hands still shook, his breathing shallow. He checked on Lyra, his heart easing when he saw her steady vitals. She was still alive. The guard stood over the captured trooper, his foot on the man's chest. "Speak," he ordered, his blade resting on the trooper's neck. "Who sent you?" The trooper chuckled, blood dripping from his split lip. "You think I'll talk, beast?" he sneered. "We already have her location. Reinforcements are coming." The guard's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his blade. "You lie." "Do I?" The trooper wheezed. "She's worth a fortune, and you're all alone." He grinned, his teeth stained red. "She'll be sold to the highest bidder." "Not while I'm breathing," Ethan growled. The trooper's eyes shifted toward Ethan, his smile faltering. You're just a medic." "Yeah," Ethan replied, his gaze cold and unyielding. "A medic who just killed one of you." The grin vanished. The comms crackled to life. "Attention," boomed a voice so deep and commanding that it made the very walls vibrate. It wasn't Rael. It wasn't a mercenary. It was something much, much worse. "This is King Theric, Iron Lord of the 7 Star Clans. You have my daughter." Ethan froze, his eyes darting toward the guard. The color drained from the warrior's face. "Return her now, and I will grant you mercy. Refuse, and I will burn that station to ashes." The line went dead. Ethan's heart felt like it had stopped. He looked at Lyra, still unconscious on the table. "She's the king's heir." The guard stepped forward, his expression grim. "You see now, human. We are out of time." "No," Ethan said firmly, wiping blood from his hands. "We're not out of time. We have her." The guard tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Ethan replied, his eyes sharp with defiance, "if her father wants her, we've got leverage." The guard's eyes widened. Then, slowly, he grinned. "You're bolder than I thought, human," he said with quiet admiration. "Bolder," Ethan muttered, his eyes flicking to Lyra, or just tired of being pushed around. He grabbed the comms panel. "King Theric," he said slowly, his voice steady. "If you want her, you're going to have to talk to me." The silence that followed was more dangerous than any battlefield. The silence after Ethan's words was deafening. It wasn't just quiet. It was absolute stillness, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Every heartbeat felt like a thunderclap in his ears. "Human," the guard whispered, his eyes darting to the comms panel. "Do you realize what you've done?" "Yeah," Ethan muttered, wiping blood from his hands. "I made myself impossible to ignore." The comms hissed with static. Then that deep, commanding voice returned, colder than the vacuum of space. "You are bold for a medic." Ethan glanced at the guard, who shook his head in warning. But Ethan didn't care. His heart was pounding, his body still humming with adrenaline. His fingers hovered over the comm switch. "This is not boldness," Ethan replied, his voice low and deliberate. "This is necessity." There was a pause. A long one. Ethan could almost hear the king's mind working through his options. The silence stretched so long that Ethan wondered if the king had left, until that voice returned, sharp and cutting. "State your demands, human." The guard's eyes widened in shock. He mouthed a single word: "Impossible." But it wasn't impossible. Ethan knew why. This wasn't a battle. This was a negotiation. He glanced at Lyra, still unconscious but stable. Her breathing was smooth. Her vitals were steady. She wasn't just another injured patient anymore. She was leverage. The daughter of a king. "Here's the deal," Ethan said, keeping his tone firm but calm. "You call off your soldiers. You tell them to stand down and pull back. No more mercenaries. No more attacks. In return, I'll keep her alive." Silence. Ethan pressed harder. "You called me a medic, Your Majesty. And you're right. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a spy. I'm not a threat to your empire." His eyes narrowed as his voice grew sharper. "But you and I both know I'm the only person here who can save your daughter. She's stable for now. But if you delay..." He let his voice trail off, letting the implication sink in. Another long pause. A deeper silence. "Do you think I am a fool, human?" the king growled. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. I could storm that station and reclaim her by force. Ethan snorted, his fear turning into something far more dangerous. Courage. Yeah, you could, he replied, glancing around at the ruined medbay. Bloodstains marked the floor. Broken equipment sparked in the corner. And by the time you get here, she'll be dead. You want to take that chance, King? His words hung in the air like a blade ready to fall. The static buzzed once more. It wasn't anger this time. It was something colder. Calculation. You gamble with your life. Human. Ethan leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. His hands were bloody, his breathing shallow, but his eyes blazed with determination. Not just mine, he said quietly. Hers too. The static faded. Minutes passed with no response. Ethan's muscles felt like they'd turned to stone. He glanced at the guard, who was still as a statue, his gaze locked on the comms panel. Do you think he'll do it? Ethan asked, his voice tight with tension. The guard's gaze shifted toward him. King Therek does not negotiate. Yeah, well, Ethan muttered, his eyes locked on Lyra. There's a first time for everything. Then the comms crackled again. Ethan's breath caught. Human. The king's voice had changed. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was colder. Controlled. Dangerous. I will honor your terms. My soldiers will withdraw. But hear me well. His voice dropped into something far more menacing. If she dies, you will beg for death, and I will deny you. The line went dead. The guard turned to Ethan, his expression unreadable. For a moment, there was only the distant hum of the station's systems and the soft beeping of Lyra's vitals. You are either the bravest human I have ever met, the guard said slowly, or the most foolish. Why not both? Ethan said with a shaky grin. His legs felt weak, and he stumbled to a nearby chair, collapsing into it with a heavy sigh. His eyes fell on his blood-stained hands. He could still feel the vibration of the scalpel, the warmth of the mercenary's blood. His grin vanished. I killed someone today. The weight of it crashed down on him. He leaned forward, his face in his hands. I'm a medic. I'm supposed to save lives. The guard knelt in front of him, his glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. You saved hers, he said, gesturing toward Lyra. Do not forget that, human. Hours passed. The mercenary corpses had been cleared away, the floors scrubbed clean. Ethan had bandaged the guard's arm, and they both sat in silence, watching over Lyra as she slowly stirred on the medical table. Her glow had returned, faint, but present. It was like watching the first rays of dawn break over the horizon. She blinked, her golden eyes fluttering open, taking in the room. Her gaze locked onto Ethan. Her lips moved, her voice barely a whisper. Why? Ethan pulled his chair closer, his eyes soft but serious. Because I'm a doctor, he said simply. That's what we do. Her eyes filled with something he didn't expect. Gratitude. The guard rose, his posture tense. Now that she's awake, we need to plan. Therek's mercy is temporary. If she stays here, he will come for her. Lyra turned her head slowly, her gaze shifting between Ethan and the guard. Her eyes lingered on Ethan for a moment longer. Then we don't stay, she whispered. Her eyes flickered with determination. We move. Move where? Ethan asked, his brow furrowed. Your father controls half the sector. Her gaze sharpened, like a blade drawn from its scabbard. My father controls half, she said firmly. The other half belongs to my mother. The guard's eyes widened. You would invoke her? Lyra sat up slowly, her movements still weak but growing stronger with each second. She always said I could call on her when I was ready. Her eyes narrowed with resolve. I'm ready. Ethan glanced between them. Confusion etched on his face. Okay, who are we talking about? The guard stepped forward. His eyes filled with both awe and fear. Queen Vashera, he muttered, his voice almost reverent. They call her the unyielding flame. Another monarch. Ethan groaned, his head tilting back against the wall. Great. 2 royal family members to deal with. "No," Lyra said, her eyes fierce. "She's not just a monarch." Her eyes locked on his. "She's a rebel queen. And she will not bow to my father." The next few hours were a blur. Messages were sent. Old communication channels, ones Ethan didn't understand, were activated. Lyra was still weak, but her words were sharp, commanding the kind of respect Ethan had only ever seen from senior military officers. He watched her in quiet awe. She wasn't just a royal brat. She was a leader. The response came faster than expected. The station lights flickered. The guard's eyes darted upward as if he could hear something Ethan couldn't. "What's happening?" Ethan asked, his heart racing. "Warp signature," the guard said, his voice tense. "Large vessel." Ethan's eyes widened. Her mother. A massive pulse of energy rippled through the station. Red emergency lights flashed. "They're boarding." Lyra's smile was sharp. "She's here." The airlock door hissed open. Figures emerged, clad in shimmering black and red armor. Their helmets bore the sigil of a burning crown. The figure at the center stepped forward, her presence so powerful it felt like gravity itself had shifted. Her golden eyes locked onto Lyra. "My daughter," said Queen Vashera, her voice like molten steel. She strode forward, each step a thunderclap. Her eyes turned to Ethan. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You," she said, her voice colder now. "You will answer to me." Ethan raised his hand slowly, exhaustion washing over him. "Lady, I just want to go home." Vashera's smile was sharp as a blade. "Welcome to my court, human." The dim glow of the ship's medbay felt oddly familiar to Ethan. It wasn't unlike the station's sterile halls, but here, everything had an edge of royalty to it. Gold-trimmed panels, smooth black steel, and the faint hum of advanced medical scanners that put his old tools to shame. He sat on the edge of a medical cot, his arms resting on his knees. His uniform was still stained with blood. His blood, the mercenary's blood, and Lyra's blood. No one had offered him a change of clothes. Across the room, Lyra sat on a raised medical platform, surrounded by attendants. Her eyes flickered with faint golden light, and her breathing was steady now. She glanced at him with something new in her gaze. "Respect." "You look like you've been through a war," she said, her voice still hoarse but stronger than before. Ethan snorted. "Feels like I fought one too." He ran a hand through his matted hair. "I'm a medic, not a soldier. But today, I had to be both." He shook his head, his voice softening. "Never wanted that." "You did what you had to," Lyra said. Her gaze didn't waver. "That's what matters." He raised an eyebrow, glancing at her with a tired smirk. "Funny. I could have sworn that's what soldiers say." Lyra tilted her head, her gaze thoughtful. "Maybe you're more of a soldier than you think." The sharp clang of footsteps echoed from the hallway. Ethan turned toward the door, his muscles tensing despite himself. He knew that sound. It wasn't a soldier's march. It was something more deliberate. Regal. The airlock doors slid open, and Queen Vashera entered the room. Her presence hit like a shockwave. She wasn't just a leader. She was command itself, every movement deliberate, every glance heavier than gravity. Her crimson and black armor gleamed under the medbay lights, and her crown-like helm sat just above her brow, more like a warrior's circlet than a symbol of royalty. All conversation died the moment she entered. The attendants lowered their heads. The guard from earlier stiffened, his posture becoming impossibly straight. Vashera's gaze swept over the room, her eyes stopping on Ethan. "Stand," she ordered. He didn't move right away. His exhaustion weighed him down, but the look in her eyes made it clear this wasn't a request. With a groan, he stood, his legs like jelly. The queen approached him, her eyes scanning him like she was evaluating his worth. She circled him slowly, silent as a shadow. Ethan could feel his heart racing, but he kept his face as calm as he could. "Don't look weak," he thought to himself. "Don't look weak in front of a predator." Finally, she stopped in front of him, her gaze piercing. "You saved my daughter," she said, her voice quiet but powerful. You forced King Theric to kneel. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You negotiated with a king as if you were his equal. Ethan didn't know if she was praising him or building a case to break him. Yeah, he replied, his voice tired but steady. I did. Her eyes flickered with amusement. Do you have any idea what you've done, human? Kept her alive, he said, nodding toward Lyra. Everything else is just noise. Vashera tilted her head slightly, her smile slow and dangerous. Noise, is it? She echoed. She glanced at Lyra, who was watching with quiet intensity. Perhaps, but it is the kind of noise that echoes across empires. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. So, what now? He asked cautiously. Vashera stepped closer. Her eyes seemed to glow brighter as she gazed down at him. Now, you owe me. His heart dropped. I owe you? He asked, disbelief dripping from his voice. Lady, I'm the one who saved your daughter. Her smile widened, sharp as a dagger. Exactly. She leaned forward, her eyes inches from his. Which means you proved your value. Her gaze didn't waver, each word striking him like a hammer on steel. And I never waste value. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. His mind was racing. He glanced at Lyra, hoping for some kind of support. But the princess simply watched him with an unreadable expression. You want me to work for you, he said slowly, realization dawning. Work with me, Vashera corrected, her voice like molten iron. I could use someone like you. Someone who sees more than rules. Someone who knows when to fight and when to heal. I'm a medic, Ethan said firmly, not a soldier. Her eyes narrowed, but her smile remained. You're a human. That's enough. She turned on her heel, her cape swirling behind her as she walked toward the door. Think on it. You have until we reach the Citadel of Embers. The airlock hissed open. Vashera paused, her back still to him. Or, she said without turning, I can return you to Theric. She glanced over her shoulder, her golden eyes blazing. I hear he has questions about your negotiation tactics. The door closed behind her, and she was gone. Ethan slumped into the nearest chair, his heart racing. Citadel of Embers. What kind of name is that? His eyes darted to Lyra. You're not gonna say anything, he asked, raising an eyebrow. She tilted her head, giving him a playful smirk. You handled it well, Doctor. Her eyes softened slightly. Besides, you impressed her. That doesn't happen often. Yeah, I'll send a thank you card, Ethan muttered, leaning forward, his hands on his face. His mind spun in circles. What did I just get myself into? Lyra swung her legs off the medbay platform, slowly rising to her feet. She moved slowly, testing her balance. The glow in her eyes had returned to full brightness. She glanced at him, her gaze sharper now. You know, she said, her tone light but serious, there are worse places to be than by my mother's side. Ethan gave her a flat look. I can think of a few. She chuckled, walking toward him with slow, deliberate steps. Stay close, human, she said, offering a hand to him. You've already survived one king. You might just survive a queen. Ethan looked at her hand. It wasn't a royal decree. It was something more personal. With a heavy sigh, he reached out and shook it. Fine, he muttered, letting out a long breath. But if anyone calls me Sir Ethan, I'm out. Lyra grinned, her teeth sharp but her eyes soft. I'll make sure they call you Dr. Ethan, she said, tugging him to his feet. He let out a short laugh, shaking his head as he followed her toward the hallway. Dr. Ethan. Yeah, I can live with that. Final log. Status. Active location. Citadel of Embers. Flagship of Queen Vashera. The Unyielding Flame. Name. Ethan Marlowe. Occupation. Field Medic. Designation. Guest of the Crown. Personal note. Every choice comes with a price. Some prices you see coming. Some you don't. I'm still trying to figure out which kind this is. But I'm still here. Still breathing. That counts for something. Message to self: don't ever play poker with royalty.